Man, I feel like I'm experiencing a case of deja vu.
As some of you may recall, I already rebuilt this thing once before. About 3.5 years ago, I bought this car from Copart. It was totaled out due to being blasted in the driver's side front corner. Most of the suspension was destroyed, so I had to replace a bunch of the components just to get this thing to roll again. This car did sustain some frame damage, so I went ahead and got it mounted on my homemade frame rack that I built some time ago, so I could pull all of the damaged metal back into its original location. After which I took some measurements and everything checked out because now all of my underhood dimensions were nice and square. Then I went ahead and addressed a damaged hood because I just did not feel like dropping $500 on a replacement unit. Fixing aluminum panels is quite a bit trickier than working with steel, but I got it done. Body filler took care of all of the smaller imperfections. Then I went ahead and painted the hood, bumper, and a replacement fender, after which all of the freshly painted parts got reinstalled on the vehicle and the whole front end got reassembled. I gotta say, everything turned out great. The paint looked good, and all of the panels fit just the way they're supposed to. Just like that, this project was done and this vehicle became my wife's daily driver for the next 3.5 years. Until one fateful day. One day, wife runs out to get some coffee at this place, and as she's leaving the coffee stand, this clown comes from around the corner, not paying attention, looking down at his phone, probably just prowling on Grindr or something. Anyways, there's plenty of room to avoid this collision, but he hits her head on, about same amount of damage to both vehicles, but Acura probably got it just a little worse. So now I got another quick project on my hands. Let's go ahead and knock this one out.
We got busted front bumper, fog light cover, we got a broken headlight, and it also appears that we may have some damage to this fender right here. I think the bottom part of the fender kind of got sucked in. Let's go ahead and pull all these damaged parts off and take a look at what's going on behind all of it. So with the bumper and headlight gone, we can actually see quite a bit more of what's going on. There originally used to be a lower airbox right in this area. I know that because I actually fixed it first time around because it was broken in a couple of different places and I had to use some plastic welding techniques to get it all back together. And now this thing is totally gone, it's just not there. Now, if we look at the bumper reinforcement bar in relation to the rest of the vehicle, you can clearly tell that the whole thing shifted over that way by a good amount because it got hit square right in this corner and absorbed most of the impact,
and that in turn sent both of these bumper reinforcement brackets sideways. I will address them a bit later in the video. I have this suspicion that it's not just the bumper reinforcement bar that shifted over. Something tells me that there is a bit more damage than that. So I will use the tram gauge to check if the underhood dimensions are square or not.
Well, what do you know? It's not dropping in a hole. That means that this diagonal here is actually longer than this one. And that would indicate that our radiator support moved over this way. So just think about it. The farther out it goes, the farther this hole will start moving out this way.
And to square up the front end, I'm going to use this homemade frame rack that I built some time ago. I actually built this thing specifically to fix the same car first time around, and it worked out amazingly well, so I have no doubt that it will tackle the task at hand no problem. In order to get the frame rack under the vehicle, you first have to get the car elevated off the ground. And the way I went about it last time around was I had to borrow a couple of ideas from another YouTuber that used these bottle jacks that were built into the jack stand. My version of the same idea consisted of scissor jack connected to the top of a jack stand. But I wasn't very happy with this setup because it was too complicated, it took too long to get the car up in the air, and in the end the car did not feel stable enough. Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication, and to simplify this process, all I had to do was use 4 car ramps to get the car up in the air.
The bench part of the frame rack is under the vehicle, and one thing I want to do is I want to kind of center it under the rig. It doesn't have to be dead on, but I kind of want to get it just in a ballpark.
I'm off by about an inch or two, but this is close enough. Next, the clamping system goes in, and that's what attaches the chassis of the vehicle to the deck of the frame rack. And if you want to see how I built this rack, I will leave a link to that video at the end of this video. I did have to deflate the tires a bit for the pinch weld area to drop down into the clamp, after which the car got clamped up to the deck. Then the pulling tower comes in and it also gets attached to the deck. After getting the pulling tower into position, I first started out by pulling on a bumper bracket that's directly attached to the frame rail, while massaging the other bracket into place with the help of a sledgehammer. As a result, both of the frame rails are moving back because they are interconnected through the radiator support. Trying the new bumper reinforcement on, and it fits. I checked the progress with the tram gauge and I see that I still gotta pull a little more. For my second pull, I'm using this tie-down strap and I'm hooking directly onto the radiator support with a piece of a 2x4 in between so that the radiator support does not get crushed by the flexible strap. In a true Seattle fashion, it started to rain again, but I can't stop, I gotta keep on going. Checking the progress again, and since the metal is under tension, the whole front end is overpulled by about 1.5 inches or so. That's because metal is springy and it will spring back. Now I release the tension and check diagonals once again.
All right, so a couple of quick pulls and let's see the result. Drops right into the hole. And on the opposite side, drops right into the hole. I love the fact that I have this frame machine. It makes stuff like this super simple. 2 quick pulls and this radiator support is right back where it's supposed to be.
Now, since I'm done with my pull, I will go ahead and disconnect the tower from the frame deck and get it out of the way.
With the radiator support back in place, now it's time to start slowly piecing this thing back together.
As far as the replacement parts go, I got a new airbox, a used headlight, and a fog light cover.
And I also got the replacement front bumper cover.
Airbox goes in first. And next, let's go ahead and see what we get when we install the headlight.
So we got somewhat of a big gap here between the fender and a headlight, and down here the fender actually dives under the headlight. One good thing about this whole scenario is if you look at this fender, there are no creases. So this means I can bend this thing back and then I won't even have to do any kind of metal repair because this will work out. If you look at the fender, it's nice and straight here, but then toward the bottom here it's starting to flare out. And I think the reason that is because if you look at this hole, it should actually be lining up with this hole down here.
Therefore, if I bring the front of the fender forward and up a little bit, this bulge should suck its way back in and bolt holes will line up. So I get the headlight out of the way and use my hands and body weight to pull and massage this fender back into shape. Now let's go ahead and compare the undamaged side to the side that we just fixed.
This is starting to look much better. Look, our bolt holes are lining up. We got a good gap up here, nice and tight down here. Our gap between the hood and the fender looks good. The gap between headlight and the hood is consistent. And we got the same exact thing going on the other side.
Now let's address this bumper.
I always try to go with OEM, meaning factory original bumper covers whenever I do any of these repairs. Maybe some of you had better luck with this, but for me, I did not have a whole lot of good luck with aftermarket bumpers, so that's why I always try to source an OEM units because they just fit that much better.
Lucky for me, there is a used bumper place about 10 minutes away from where I live, and these guys got everything. Right now I'm just walking through the sorting area where all of the new arrivals get dumped, sorted out, and graded. I guess anything that's beyond repair will just get recycled, and bumpers that are fixable will get cataloged and placed up on the shelf. You're probably wondering, where did all of these bumpers come from? Folks that run this business have a deal that they set up with every body shop in probably about a 100-mile radius. They got these trucks visiting all of those body shops, picking up all of the takeoff damaged bumper covers, no questions asked. And let me tell you, this place is huge. It sits on several acres of property and it's filled with bumper covers. There's probably 250,000 bumpers at this place on hand at any given time. And they got a bumper cover for any vehicle that's been sold in North America probably in the last 30 years. So I normally just go in there, tell them what bumper I need, then someone will take me into the area where these bumpers would be in, and there's usually at least 10 bumpers for me to choose from, and normally some of these bumpers will have some issues. Like whenever I picked this one up, there was a crack right in this area, and also a couple of these mounting tabs were broken on both sides. But the deal is, if I am buying a bumper from them, they will have this thing repaired, so I just come back the following day and pick it up. At this point, the repair's been done, and all I gotta do is just get this bumper ready for paint, spray it, and put it on.
And the funny thing is, a lot of these bumpers, once fixed, get sold right back to the shops where they came from. And same goes for headlights. I always try to source used OEM headlights because in my experience, the aftermarket headlights just never disperse the light as good as the OEM lights do.
So to get this bumper ready for paint, first I gotta prep the repair area. I'm gonna go ahead and hit it with 180 grit sandpaper on a DA, smooth the repaired area out as much as possible, and roughen up the surrounding paint so it can accept some Bondo. Now level that Bondo out and apply some primer. By the following morning, the primer is cured, and now I can go ahead and block it out with some 400 grit sandpaper. Repair area feels nice and smooth.
So in order to get this bumper prepped, I can use either 400 or 600 grit sandpaper. And since I am doing a full repaint on this bumper, since we're changing the color completely, I am going to seal this bumper before I lay down any base coat. And that sealer will cover a lot of the heavier scratches that may be left behind by some 400 grit sandpaper. So I don't really have to use 600. 400 grit will do just fine in this instance. But sanding the whole thing down with some sandpaper is going to take a little too long, so instead I'm going to use this burgundy Scotch Brite, which is actually equivalent of 400 grit sandpaper, and I'm going to use it together with some final sand. This is basically a gritty paste. It's got some grit to it. It's almost like a really fine crushed sand in there. So this paste will help me scuff up the bumper, and at the same time it will clean it. It'll get all the oils and dirt and any kind of wax or any of that stuff off the bumper. So once I'm done scuffing it down, this bumper will basically be ready to be sprayed. I actually have two projects that I'm trying to finish today. So I have two bumpers that I'll be painting at the same time.
Today is a bit of a sad day for me because last night we had a pretty strong windstorm, and my favorite tree out of my whole backyard ended up falling over. It broke away from the roots. This thing is done. There is no saving it. And it's a shame because it was a beautiful plum tree that would blossom with thousands of flowers every spring. It would fill my backyard with sweet, fruity aroma that would attract thousands of bees, and I just love this thing. And it's such a shame that now it's all gone. The sealer that I'm using is by Lumabase brand. It is something I'm able to get at one of my local paint supply stores. I've been using this sealer for a few years and it works great. I have nothing negative to say about it. This stuff comes in color white, black, or gray. And a gray sealer would be closest in shade to the light blue silver metallic that we're going to be painting today. This stuff mixes 4-2-1-2-1, meaning 4-part sealer, 1 part activator, and 1 part urethane reducer. I used to not ever use sealer before, and then once I started using it, I'm never going back to not using it again. This is like a coat of glue between the original finish on our used bumper and the new paint that's gonna get applied over the sealer. It is super important that sealer is used, especially if I am painting a front bumper, because it will greatly reduce the amount of rock chips in this newly painted bumper as time goes on. I laid down a medium wet coat of sealer at about 29 to 30 psi of air pressure, and somehow I failed to record it. My base coat mixes 1-to-1 with just your basic urethane reducer, and normally I spray my base right around 26 psi. One important thing to note, if you guys want your end result to be nice and flat, meaning least amount of orange peel, you have to make sure that every coat that you apply, whether it's sealer, base coat, or clear coat, all those coats would have to go down kinda wet, so this way they can flow out and flatten themselves out. I'm doing my final inspection here after 2 coats of base, and everything is looking nice, flat, and uniform. So at this point, I'm ready to lay down some clear. Clear I'll be using today is this USC brand. This stuff is pretty inexpensive. I've been using it for the past few years with good results. It mixes 4:1. This is a cheap clear, but there's really nothing bad I can say about it. This stuff just works, so I just keep on using it. Cleanliness is super important with any paint job, so I use this sticky tack cloth to pick up any kind of debris, bugs, dirt, or overspray between every coat that I do, right up to my very first coat of clear. As I've mentioned earlier, I normally spray my base coat at right around 26 psi. When it comes to sealer and clear, I normally bump my air pressure up to about 29 to 30 psi. Because those are thicker materials and you need more air pressure to break them up into smaller droplets so they would lay down smoother, resulting in that desired flat finish instead of laying out all bumpy and causing that rough textured finish, also known as orange peel.
The sun is going down, the light is dwindling, and I got done just in time. So let's see what sort of results a person can get spraying stuff in the backyard.
Guys, one of the main reasons that I even started this YouTube channel was to show people, you know what, you don't need a fancy facility, the controlled environment inside of a paint booth to be able to achieve a satisfactory or even a professional looking result right in your driveway or even your backyard. It's not easy to cram many years of experience into one video, so if you guys want to know more about how I'm able to get cleaner, better looking paint jobs right in my driveway, then go ahead and check out some of my other videos where I really go into depth on a step-by-step guide on how to get these clean paint jobs outside of the controlled environment, because there's a definite set of rules that you have to follow in order to achieve that. So the following day, I just went ahead and swapped all of the grills, clips, and hardware from the damaged bumper onto the replacement bumper. The last day of any project that I do is by far the most exciting day, because this is when you get to see the fruits of your labor as the car goes back together and the end of all of your hard work is in sight. And what makes this particular day even more exciting is the fact that this car is already sold. So as soon as it gets all put together and gets down off of the frame rack, it will go to its new owner. And for those of you who's wondering whether the new owner is aware of the vehicle's history, the answer is yes. He is a personal friend of mine who stopped by the house plenty of times, even over 3 years ago, back when I originally got this car from Copart, so there are no surprises, he knows it all. Oh yeah, and if you're wondering what the wife's gonna be driving now, here's her new ride. I picked her up this little gem some time ago in not really pristine condition, thinking that would make some decent content. So this new build is yet to come. The color of the bumper is off a little bit. You don't really see it in person that much, however the camera really picks it up and emphasizes the difference. And to be honest, I don't think my buddy even noticed it. I'm going to leave links to tools and materials used in this video in a video description down below, so if you guys click on the link and make a purchase, I'm gonna make a few bucks to keep this channel going. And also I'd be grateful if you guys click the like button to let the YouTube algorithm know that my videos aren't totally terrible. And with that being said, I will see you on the next one.